Today's topic, psychology versus spirituality and how to use them for your personal issues. Often people want to find out more about spirituality, but what they're actually looking for is a cure for their psychological issues. For instance, you might be complaining about sadness, anxiousness, or depression, and you just want to get rid of it, right? Either by changing your thoughts, behavior, or analyzing your issues that you can gain a deeper understanding. And there are many ways how you can approach your issue, but it mainly depends on the issue itself, your personality, and of course your introspective abilities, so how much insight you can get. And probably you've tried to work on your issues, maybe even with professional help. But even if you do it for a long time, even after years, you still realize those issues are still somehow there. And doesn't matter whether it is your toxic behavior or your depressed mood, it always tends to come back. Doesn't matter how well analyzed you've been or how much you try to change your behavior and thoughts. We could also try to deceive yourself and try to make you less attentive, that you think that those issues are outside of your awareness, but I mean they're still there and you're going to realize this in the long run. So you are thinking about your current situation and eventually you stumbled over some kind of spiritual literature, maybe some books from ancient masters or maybe from people from our current society, and you think what they say, it makes sense. Why not trying to simply observe and leave our action as it is instead of analyzing or trying to change something? Simply observing it, and observing is not the same as analyzing. And trying to get some kind of insight. And therewith we come to the comparison of spirituality and psychology. Although they might seem very related, they also have many differences. And I'm sure you already had this thought, okay, therapy didn't work out for me, but what is about spirituality? And I can tell you, yes, maybe, but also maybe not, because what both disciplines have in common is that they should make us more aware of our current situation. Even if you want to change something, your social behavior, you need to be aware of it. You can't change something that you don't know. On the other hand, you can participate in as many psychoanalytical sessions as you want. Getting on the couch, introspection, free association in line with Freudian school or other psychodynamic approaches. And then, when you have all this knowledge and maybe you feel excited, frightened, maybe superior because you have more insight than most of the other people, but what are you going to do with the knowledge if you're still the same kind of bastard that you were since childhood? What therapy and spirituality both have in common is they focus on the person itself. In therapy, you really play an active role during that process. You should take responsibility for your future, that you can change things. And in spirituality, you have all those different teachings from all the masters, but in the end you need to go your own way, how to deal with your current situation. Let's come to the actual goal of therapy. Most of the therapies try to change maladaptive behaviors such as being depressed and just staying in bed and ruminating, or being anxious and trying to avoid or escape frightening situations by changing the person itself and their thoughts and behavior, or maybe by trying to provide the person with some kind of insight that they can see what is going on and change their way of living. But within spirituality, this is a little bit different. where you are seeing yourself, maybe even with all your issues of being anxious or depressed or not happy, but you still realize that you are perfect that way. Right here and now, there's nothing that needs to be changed because you don't identify with those things. You rather see them come and go. Maybe they stay a little bit longer, but you do not identify with them because you had some type of insight or realization. And please don't confuse this with knowledge and facts. But you have a completely different point of view. Therewith, let's move back to the actual question whether spirituality is able to remove your psychological issues. So if you had some kind of insight or realization, or maybe you are working towards it, I don't know if you can even call it this way, but let's just do it. You are going to realize that almost all, if not all, of your psychological issues are only directed at your ego structure. So something which actually does not exist, even if it seems to be very real. For instance, thoughts that you identify with, but or feelings and all those other things, but to realize, okay, it's just a thought, but I'm here, or this is just a behavior, but I'm only watching that behavior. Really experiencing the difference, not knowing it intellectually, but really experiencing it. But if you didn't have any kind of realization, you are living in a world which seems to be very real, but actually it is not what it is, but rather what you think it is, because you're only living inside of your mind. And that's a different thing than reality. It sounds a little bit like Matrix, and I also made a video about this topic, so maybe you want to check it out. And many people think that if you had some kind of awakening, that all those issues will simply disappear, but this is not true. Instead, the only thing that happens is that the way how you are looking at them changes, that you don't cling to them, but everything else is still the same. You are still the same greedy bastard that doesn't want to share a single cent but is spending thousands of dollars for his psychoanalytical sessions. But this personality of being a bastard, to realize that this is the actual illusion. So you are aware of it, but you realize you are not the personality itself. It's rather more like an identity on role that you can act out, but deep down you know this is not who I am. I'm only watching the whole thing. And it doesn't matter whether life goes up or down, and you might realize all those issues are still there. You just watch. And this is the difference between working on the spiritual or more psychological plane, because the person that works in a psychological way will always move up when it's nice, but will also go down, being still there when it's nice, but trying to change it when it's not nice. But it's hard to influence this whole thing because life is so complex. Why just not letting it go up and down and just watch? Out of my personal experience, I can say that it's very valuable to work on the psychological and spiritual plane at the same time, especially when it's not that well balanced, because this might sound very extreme, but you have people that are so close to enlightenment, but psychologically they are just a huge bundle of suffering and pain. Or let's take the opposite, the guy with the psychoanalysis who has a lot of psychological knowledge about himself, but has no idea of what it is actually about, or didn't have any kind of actual insight, but mostly it is something in between. You're on the spiritual path, but realize that your psychological issues are holding you back. So why not using both ways? Not just focusing on mindfulness, even if it is a driving factor, but also taking into account wisdom, psychological flexibility, or other things. And I mean, this is what Buddha was talking about. I know it's a different time, but this is it. At least, I think so. My name is Till, and this is Till Talk.